identify the change that has happened in your season, in your generation, and then stand up, take the courage to face the change that has happened. So the question is, in your industry, what is the change that has taken place? When you stand up to face that change, Tupac says, that will change everything. I would like to suggest that in the world of business with regards to human beings, here is the main change that has happened. Power has shifted from the developers to those who are being developed. Power has shifted from leaders to followers. Power has shifted from suppliers of services and products to the consumers of services and products. It is customers who are taking charge. They decide how they should be served. They decide how their products should be packaged. They even decide how much they are prepared to pay. It is followers who decide who should lead them, how they should be led, and for how long they should be led by who. Believe it or not, the people you are trying to develop, they decide how they should be developed. Power has shifted. And if that is the case, it therefore means that these are no longer days of manipulation, but they are days of influence. People no longer respond well to manipulation. You are no longer going to manipulate the person you are developing. You will have to influence them, not manipulate them. Why? They are thinking beings. Some of them are smarter than the one who is developing. Some students are smarter than the student developer. Some of them have got access to information better than you. I know of a spiritual leader in a church who prepared a sermon for a Sunday morning teaching. He happened to prepare that presentation based on a book he read 18 years ago, which was written by somebody who had recently made an apology for the error he made in the book he wrote 18 years ago. And he makes that apology on the internet. And this pastor, who has no access to the internet, prepared his sermon based on that book. And the younger folk in the congregation had already had an access to the internet material, where the author of that old book, which is a resource for this pastor, the author has made an apology for the error he made. And it is very true that there are people who are student developers who are still holding on to some obsolete material,
to the book,
which were written before the student you are developing was born. This new world of work, it no longer has muscle workers, but it has knowledge workers. And the students they are developing now, they know they are getting there. Not to be muscle workers, but to be knowledge workers. The students they are developing, they already know that they are not going to be called subordinates. They are going to be called associates. And and you are busy calling one another subordinates. You see, the word subordinate comes from the military, from the 16th century, when we had a militaristic approach to leadership and management. And then it was correct, because in the military, you don't have to think. If the commander-in-chief says shoot, you shoot. If he says ceasefire, you ceasefire. That's how it works. But your students are not going there. Your students are going to an environment where the word subordinate is an evil word. Because the word subordinate is a grammatic construct of two words. The first word is sub, which means below. And the second word, ordinate, comes from the word ordinary. A subordinate, therefore, is somebody below ordinary.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And leaders in the 21st century who are smart don't use that word.
Who are smart, like that.
It's only imbeciles who continue to use that word. But smart leaders don't. Because this is a new world. Now the reason why I'm talking like this is because you are the ones who say, the students you are developing now are not just qualified professionals. They are sensitive intellectuals, and they are critical citizens. May I therefore suggest, before I start with my presentation, by the way, I haven't started yet, I'm still laying a foundation, just to make sure that those who are still coming, they catch up with us. Then I'll start shortly in 2 minutes. May I therefore suggest that your intention as a student developer must never to win over people. Because if you win over them, they become your enemies. Your intention must to be to win them over to you. Because when you do that, they become your friends. And I hope you can see the difference on a Sunday morning. Win over them, they become your enemies. Win them over, they become your friends. It's not a battle. It's not a conquest. When you win over people, it means you have defeated them. And whoever feels defeated will become your enemy. They may serve you under fear, but they don't like you no more. They are your enemies. So don't win over them, but win them over. If you win over them, they become your enemies. But if you win them over, they become your friends. Against that background, I would like, therefore, to suggest that you need to have a particular attitude, a particular behavior, and action that is relevant for the 21st century. And this really will be my talk. The attitude, ability, and action that is required for a student developer in the 21st century. And this will be the subject of my discussion. I want to believe that basically what you need is what I call the 3G attitude, the 3A ability, and the 3R action. Whatever animal that is, you shall learn shortly. This will be the subject of my discussion. If you want to make an impact in the lives of these people that we're developing, I'm sure we can make this presentation available if you want. It's copyright. That means I give you the right to copy. That's what copyright means. Giving someone the right to copy. Especially because you pay me, so that's okay. And you can use the material in your own environment to discuss. It's okay. No problem. I don't have a problem with that. I've got more material that you don't know yet. So these ones you can use. They are designed really for you. I put it together in this session just for you. 3G attitude, 3A ability, and the 3R action is what you need for you to make an impact in your business going forward. Before we start with this, anybody who knows the vision of Nasdev? Raise up your hand.
All of us.
You don't know the vision.
It's everybody who's facing
Where
this
there
way.
is no vision, people perish. It is going to be very important going forward that there's got to be an alignment, or that there's going to be alignment through clarity of purpose. We really need to know what is it that we want to achieve. If we don't know that, it's going to be a battle to go ahead. Because what I'm going to present now, it assumes that you are a family. And it assumes that you know where you are going to. And it assumes that you are a team and you belong together. And vision is one of the things that can make people to belong together. Even though we come from different campuses and different environments, but we know that we belong to one family. So let us begin then with the 3G attitude. I call it the 3G attitude because it has got 3 dimensions. It has got the attitude of gratitude, the attitude of growth, and the attitude of generosity. This is a winning attitude for people who are in the world of developing others. You need to have an attitude of gratitude. An attitude of gratitude means that you are thankful. Be thankful for being in that position where the souls and the lives of people have been put in your hands. It's a very special platform. That is why I like your theme, crystallizing our calling. Not everybody can do what you are doing. You are entrusted with people's lives. Be thankful that you are here to shape the futures of families, the futures of business, the futures of nations, the future of the world. Be thankful. Be so thankful that you realize that you probably have been given a chance to be alive because of this calling. Maybe you have messed up like many people have messed up. So much messed up that if judgment were to look at you, it would say, you must die. But God's grace says, let's give him a second chance. Be thankful. Now many people have messed up so much. They deserve to die, but they are still alive. Be thankful. Be thankful. Maybe already you have messed up someone's life. Already. Maybe you have already poisoned a student with erroneous philosophies already. And yet you are still alive. Be thankful. Look at your neighbor and say, be thankful.
Be thankful.
Are you?
Now, you see, you need to, we must begin there. It begins with an attitude of what? Gratitude. You see, an attitude of gratitude will turn your tragedy into a strategy. Now, this is not playing around with words. That's true.
Yeah.
We know it with Nelson Mandela. He was in a tragedy called Robben Island. And yet, because he had an attitude of gratitude in that tragedy became a strategy for peace, forgiveness, and reconciliation. And that is why when he got out of Robben Island, one of the things he did was to visit the very mother of H.F. Verwoerd. Many of us were not impressed with what he did, including myself. Because I said to myself, the Release Mandela campaign was not meant for you to get out of Robben Island and then go visit the very author of apartheid. But he did it because the tragedy had now become a strategy for peace, forgiveness, and reconciliation.
Yeah.
When his closest friend and comrade Chris Hani was assassinated in a pool of blood, many of us were very angry. We wanted to go and kill whoever did it. And yet when he was interviewed on national television, he spoke like a statesman even before he became president, and he calmed the whole nation. Why? Tragedy had now become a strategy for peace, forgiveness, and reconciliation. When his face was turned to be like that of a gorilla, and it was passed on from one PC to another through email, many of us were very angry. We phoned radio stations saying all kinds of things, but when he was interviewed, he said, nobody can take away my dignity unless I allow them. Why? Tragedy had become a strategy for peace, reconciliation, and forgiveness. It doesn't matter what difficulty you are in right now. If you have an attitude of gratitude, your tragedy can become a strategy for success. You see, when you have an attitude of gratitude, you begin to see things differently from others. Where others see chaos, you see opportunities. Where others see problems, you see challenges. You begin to have a new pair of eyes. And you may not be able to change what you see, but you can change how you see it. You may not change what you see, but you can change how you see it. That's a very important thing right there. In York, some of you come from campuses where when you look at things, you can realize, I can't change what I see. But you can change how you see it. You may be in a pit, like Nelson Mandela was in a pit called Robben Island. It was a dark pit that separated him from his friends, family, and people. He couldn't change what he saw in that pit, P-I-T. He ate the food he did not want to eat. He did the work he did not want to do. He woke up at a time he did not want to wake up. So he couldn't change what he saw, but he changed how he saw the pit. He saw it as precedent in training. He saw the pit as precedent in training. And I know that. Why? When he was in that pit, he wrote a book called Long Walk to Freedom. He wrote it on toilet paper with a pencil, not pen. They were not allowed to have pens inside prison. They could only have pencils. And he wrote and finished the entire book on toilet paper in prison. It only got printed outside of prison, but he hand wrote it from A to Z in prison. And he was inspired by the future of the new South Africa. You may be going through some serious pit right now in your life. Financial, relational, social, or even in your health. You are diagnosed with some strange disease. You are in a pit. But as to whether you'll emerge victorious or not, it depends on the kind of attitude you maintain when you're in the pit. Some of you are trying to develop others, but your own child is a headache to you. You're in a pit. But the bend on the road does not mean the end of the road. If you don't have an attitude of gratitude, it's very difficult to develop other people. You carry the baggage of your own family to a student, an innocent student at school. Have an attitude of gratitude. People like Nelson Mandela, they were separated from their own family. And yet, because they were obsessed with the liberty of everybody else, they held on to their calling. And that is why I asked you about your vision earlier on. You really need to know where you are going to. And you need to have a clear picture of the promised land of your organization. You need to see the milk, the honey, and the grapes so clearly in your mind that nothing stops you from getting there. Despite all the challenges of finances, I'm sure as an organization you need more and more and more money to do the kind of work you want to do. Despite all those challenges, you need to have an attitude of gratitude. But secondly, you must have an attitude of growth. This is very crucial for you. The attitude of growth is an attitude that gives you what I call the continuous improvement consciousness, which says it is good, but it can be better. It is good, but it can be better. You need to have that. It is good, but it can be better. It is good, but it can be better. This organization may be good, but it can be better. You as a practitioner, you may be good, but you can be better. The attitude of growth will save you from the arrival syndrome. The arrival syndrome is a disease that affects people who think that success is a destination. They do not know that success is a journey and not a destination. In other words, you never arrive at it. Never arrive. There are many people who arrive, for example, in a marriage, they've arrived. So you find this man who, when he was not yet married, used to look good, shave good, and smell good, and walk tall. Now that he is married, he neglects himself. He has arrived. And there is this woman who, when she was not married, she used to look good, walk tall, elegant all the time, smelling nice all the time. Now that she's married, she neglects herself. She has arrived. When she was not yet married, it used to be G-strings, now kitty bloomers. The problem is you might have arrived, but the market out there is saturated.
Yeah.
Out there, they have not arrived. They are looking for your man. Never arrive. Look at your neighbor and say, don't arrive.
Don't arrive.
And as the world is changing so fast, even the job that you hold now, there are millions of people looking for that job. You holding on to it and you are doing nothing but only to protect your territory. They have nothing to protect. They are accessing information every day. They are getting smarter and smarter than you are. You wake up tomorrow, there is a course for people who are supposed to be student developers. Some institution somewhere offering that course. People right now may be busy doing that course. You wake up, they are qualified, professionally qualified student developers, and you may not be. Watch this. The knowledge that brought you this far may not be enough to take you ahead. The knowledge that brought you this far may not be enough to take you ahead. Yeah. So don't arrive. People who are into development of others, you need to be readers more than anyone else. I repeat. People who are into developing others should be the greatest readers on earth. If you don't, you are in serious trouble.
You will not come close to arrive.
So I charge you, be obsessed with the attitude of growth. Work on you. Get the skills you need to get. Get the knowledge you need to get. This is a different world. Things are changing every day. Work on yourself. Package yourself well. Groom yourself well. So that people can admire you. And they will want to hear what you have to say. There's got to be something between your ears that most people don't have. Never arrive.
Never
Attitude
arrive.
of growth. But you also need to have an attitude of generosity. And that means you need to be obsessed with a spirit of benevolence. That means that you need to be a natural giver. If you are into developing people, you must be a natural giver. You must always be willing to give. And what I like about giving, we say, give, it shall be given. When you give, you are in the position of receiving. But when you hold on to things, even when the universe wants to bless you, you are not blessable. It is a spiritual principle that what you radiate to others will return to you 1,000-fold. So be a natural giver. Have an attitude of generosity. You can say a lot about giving knowledge, etc., etc., but our time is limited for this morning. This is what I call the 3G attitude. It is an attitude that can make you a winner not only in the portfolio you have now, but generally in your life. Winners have an attitude of gratitude, an attitude of growth, and an attitude of generosity. But it's one thing to have a positive attitude, the right attitude. You also must have the ability that is relevant for the 21st century. And I call this the 3A ability. And the reason why I call it that way is because it has got three aspects which are very crucial. Agility, anticipation, and adaptability. The word agility means the ability to respond quickly and resourcefully. The ability to respond quickly and resourcefully. If you are dealing with sensitive intellectuals and critical citizens, you better have the ability to respond quickly and resourcefully. Those two words must go together, quickly and resourcefully. The word resourcefulness means being part of the solution and not part of the problem. Because it is possible for you to respond quickly, but only to find yourself being quickly part of the problem and not of the solution. However, because we are in Africa, and the critical mass of Africans suffer from a disease called slow response. Let me speak a little bit on the quick response side of things. I want to demonstrate to you how dangerous it is to respond slowly. And unfortunately, many Africans, they suffer from the disease called slow response. We take long to respond. And by the time we respond, we are totally irrelevant. And it's sad that people are really slow. They drag their feet. They take long to decide. And even after they've decided, they take long to implement, if they do at all. Even people who are supposed to be busy with development, they are slow. Literally slow. Whether it's human development, organizational development, infrastructural development, somehow people are just slow. It's a tragedy. Let me demonstrate to you how tragic it is to be slow in response. I will use a case study. It's a case study that we could spend 2-3 hours on it, but I'll spend 4 minutes on it. This case study is taught in business schools and management schools. It's a story of Motorola and Nokia. A sad story for Motorola, but an exciting story for Nokia. Now, how can the same story be frustrating to one and be exciting to another? You shall learn shortly. Motorola was once a world leader in manufacturing
Mobile.
and distributing cell phones. There was such a time. If I was a poet, I would say, once upon a time.
That's a funny time.
There was such a time when Motorola was a world leader. So much of a world leader that at one stage it held 75% market share. Meaning if you were to see 100 cell phones, 75 of them would have been Motorola cell phones. There was such a time, but it is no longer so. Evidence, just look around. You will struggle to see a Motorola cell phone. So what happened? Well, this is what happened. At one stage, the world shifted from analog technology to digital technology. And the shift was swift, but Motorola did not shift with the time. It held on to analog technology. It had what I call an inappropriate affection for the past. It was happily married with analog technology. And it's understandable. It is a technology that made it a world leader. But it was not enough to keep it a world leader. But it held on to it. And a small, almost insignificant company called Nokia saw the window of opportunity, and it swiftly moved in. And within 3.5 years, Nokia had overtaken Motorola, almost to the demise of Motorola. And for your information, by the way, Nokia, when it was first established, it was not established as a telecommunications company. It was a rubber shoe manufacturing company.
Sure.
But when it saw the world changing, it transformed itself to become relevant to the time. Nasdev may have to be awake and reinvent itself to become relevant to the time. Redefine yourself to become relevant to the time. Redefine what is student development to become relevant to the time. Reorganize yourself even structurally to become relevant to the time. Reconsider whether you should just meet once a year only to become relevant to the time. Re-look at how you communicate in between conferences to become relevant to the time. By the way, this Nokia company comes from a small country. So small, it's difficult to see on the world map. A small company called Finland. And Finland has got only 5 million people in population. What an amazing thing. We are 50 million. We are only 5 million in Finland. And that's where Nokia comes from. And I'm mentioning this because it doesn't really matter where you operate from. If you have agility, your wisdom, your products, your impact, your influence can affect the whole world. Some of you come from rural provinces, and you come from those campuses that are designed for the previously disadvantaged people. It doesn't really matter where you operate from. If you are smart, like Nokia, coming from a small country, Finland, with only 5 million people, and the users of the cell phones there, if you exclude the kids, there are probably 2.5 million people who can use Nokia cell phones in Finland. But we know that Nokia has made more cell phones because they don't only supply their own people, but supply the whole world.
Yeah.
I hope I'm talking to the right people this morning.
Yeah.
But of course, you know the story of Nokia. It suffered the same thing that Motorola suffered. Nokia held on to mere technology when the world shifted from mere technology to smart technology. So it got overtaken by newcomers like BlackBerry and others, and now you talk Samsung and Apple, etc. Listen, the mere ways of developing students may not take you far. There's got to be a smart way of doing business. I repeat, there's got to be a smart way of doing business. There's got to be a smart way of running your own family as well at home.
Yeah.
There's got to be a smart way of managing your own money. Because these students are looking at you. If you promise them success and yet you look like a symbol of suffering and a portrait of poverty, they can't believe you. You can't stand up and talk about success, but you don't look successful. You need to increase your believability. When you speak, you must be believable.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Am I talking to the right people?
Yeah.
Fikri. Yeah, but
To be smart. Look like you are developed yourself. In the way you manage your time. In the way you manage your stature. Look like you are developed. Be a source of hope
Yeah.
that human development is possible. Look, be a source of hope that it is possible to become better. Because since I have been following this developer of mine, I am seeing him or her actually getting better all the time. When I first met him or her, his ability to master the English language was questionable. But after 6 months or whatever, I see him actually getting better.
Yeah.
Am I talking to the right people? So, you need to be an example of development yourself.
Yeah, but
Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, don't worry about this guy.
What about this
He's
guy?
not talking to you,
Not talking to you.
he's talking to me.
My friend, somebody.
Oh, my time is almost gone. I must move fast now. The next is anticipation. Everyone say anticipation. Say that out. Anticipation.
Anticipation.
That means the ability to see the next bounce of the ball. Remember, you are into development. You are developing them into the future, into something they are not yet. So you must be able to see where the ball will bounce next, because you are helping them to get there. Now, in this world, we are playing a game of life. It doesn't matter what business you are in a game of life.
Yeah.
And in this game of life, there's a ball that we are playing. And this ball is highly inflated. And because it's inflated, there's a tendency of bouncing. But guess what? It bounces only one direction, into the future. It never goes back. It's going forward. And there are two kinds of players in this game. The winners and the losers. Who are the losers? The losers are those who are focusing on where the ball is bouncing now. Short-sighted. And who are the winners? The winners are those who anticipate where the ball will bounce next. So that whilst they are here physically, where the ball is bouncing now, mentally they visit that space where the ball will bounce next. So that whilst they are here, the decisions they make today are not only good for today, whilst they're at the expense of their future. The choices they make today are informed by the next bounce of the ball. The people they recruit today, that is informed by the next bounce of the ball. The way they spend their money today, that is informed by the next bounce of the ball. The kinds of technology they purchase today, that is informed by the next bounce of the ball. In other words, they do not sabotage their future because of some present crisis.
Okay.
I don't know what you are doing now as an organization that is directly sabotaging your future. There are people who behave today as if there is no tomorrow. Even at leadership level, you see leaders behaving like morons and imbeciles, literally sabotaging their tomorrow because they are excited about the current positional power, forgetting that leadership is not a position, but leadership is a function. And what will keep you a leader tomorrow, it's how you functioned today. It's amazing how people can live today as if there is no tomorrow. May I make a very important leadership statement? And that is, today's problems are a result of yesterday's short-sighted solution. Today's problems are a result of yesterday's short-sighted solution. Which means that when you come together in a conference like this, if in your deliberations today you are short-sighted, I can guarantee you that today you will be busy creating the problems of tomorrow. Your blindness today is responsible for your nightmare tomorrow. Never be short-sighted in your deliberation. Never. Especially an organization like yours. Because you are not selling factory where you can easily change the ingredients the following day. How you're going to operate tomorrow is dependent on how you are doing business today. The errors that you may create today become very difficult to erase. And that is why I always say that where there is no shepherd, the sheep faint. And if those students are sheep and you are shepherd, well, they are likely to faint if you are not there. If you are drunk, if you are preoccupied with things that have nothing to do with the sheep. Because sheep can be born without fault. Nothing wrong with the sheep. But if the shepherd is not there, they go drink wrong water, eat wrong grass, they develop vomiting and diarrhea and die. Not because there was something wrong with the sheep, but because there was something wrong with the shepherd. And that is why when productivity goes down the drain in an organization, it's not always the workers' problem, it is sometimes the leader's problem. The error of a leader becomes terror to the followers. The error of a leader becomes terror to the followers. May I say with the same voice, the error of a developer becomes terror to the product.
You're a terrorist. You make errors, you're a terrorist.
Now, please, don't take this in personal. Remember, in the last week in the conference, charging you like a commander-in-chief and say, go and do a good job. And I told you that my talks are really designed to challenge people to become their best. Anticipation. This means that you better be studying where the world is going to. Where will the ball bounce next? Advocate Paul says, see then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the 21st century is difficult. Because the days are evil, he says. This therefore means that leaders must be awake and know and understand the signs of the times. And the last part there is adaptability. Everyone say adaptability.
Adaptability.
That means the ability to modify your behavior in order to meet the varying, changing circumstances. And ladies and gentlemen, circumstances are changing in front of you every day. Now you need to have adaptability, the ability to modify your behavior. Modify your behavior. If your circumstances have changed, modify your behavior. And I can tell you right now, your circumstances are changing every day. At a personal level, at an organizational level, your circumstances are changing. You need to be able to modify your behavior. If you are diagnosed diabetic today, you got your blood test, says diabetes, your circumstances have changed. Modify your sugar-taking habits. Let those of us who are not diabetic continue with our sugar. But when your circumstances have changed. I am very serious. Even though we belong to one organization, we're coming from various campuses, the circumstances are different. Modify your behavior. If I used to drive a big car during good times to go collect big checks, and now it's difficult times, I'm collecting smaller checks, wisdom teaches me that I must get rid of my big car, get a small car, go collect small checks until things are fine. Then I can go back to my big car. That's called reducing the cost of doing business. We are still doing the same business, but we have reduced the cost of doing that business. Many of us, we complain about lack of resources, etc., etc. And you find that people during good times, they used to print things on one side of the paper. And yet, even during difficult times, they are not printing on both sides. They still print on one side. They are not modifying their behavior. Please modify your behavior. By the way, your circumstances are changing every day. Every day your circumstances are changing while you are aging.
Yeah.
And as you age, guess what? Your organs also age. And the thing, when you age, things begin to hang. And those that are hanging, they hang more.
Carry word.
And going to the gym may minimize the impact of hanging. Modify your behavior. Talking of organs that age with age. When an organ ages, its functionality also ages. So one organ in your body called the liver. The liver is one of the organs in your body that ages with your age. And this organ's function is to handle all toxic things that get into your body through eating or drinking. So your liver, for example, when you were 35, maybe it could handle 3 glasses of Jack Daniels. Now that you are 44, you may have to modify your behavior. Modify. Look at your name and say, modify.